Howdy, howdy, everybody. Welcome to Office Hours FM episode 111. I am your host, Carrie Dills, and today I've got a treat for you all the way from Arizona. We've got Neill Feather on from SiteLock today. Neill, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for agreeing to come on. For those of you who are able to tune in live today, you can send Neill questions via Twitter using either the hashtag OfficeFM or just tweet it to my Twitter handle at OfficeHoursFM. Or if you're watching this over on Google Plus or YouTube, you can use the Q&A app over there, which reminds me, as usual, I need to turn on the Q&A app so I can see those. So before we get cracking, would like to thank today's show sponsor, which is the Office Hours FM community. So if you are a small business or freelancer just getting started and would like a community of your peers to connect with and be challenged by and get support from, you're going to want to check that out at my.officehours.fm. And with no further ado, hello again, Neill.
Hello.
So I'm catching you on your lunch break over there, I suppose.
Just about, yeah.
If you need to bust out a sandwich or something, that's okay.
No, we're all set. That's part of our efficiency program here is no one's allowed to eat lunch, so we just move right through.
There you go. And do you have a cot right there in your office to sleep?
Yeah, exactly. Cot and then lots of coffee. So
nice. I listened to your interview recently over on Do the Woo with Bob WP, and it was a great interview with you. But for folks who either haven't had that interview or a different one with you or haven't gotten a chance to meet you, can you kind of share who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the president of SiteLock, and what we do at SiteLock is we provide a range of security solutions for website owners. So we do everything from website malware identification and removal to vulnerability management. We also offer like a web application firewall to help stop issues. So the way we kind of present it is we help website owners find, fix, and prevent security issues on their websites. And we have a number of different solutions that we use to do that. But the most popular things are the malware identification and the automated malware removal, along with some of the preventative solutions on the firewall side.
And have you been with SiteLock from the very beginning, or did it start?
Yeah,
and
I was here from the beginning. So back in 2008. So we started the business in 2008. And the idea at the time was there were a lot of good security products and even web application security products for large businesses and enterprises. But not a lot that was really targeted and tailored to small business owners, and including web design agencies and things like that. And so we wanted to build a product and a company that was focused on bringing solutions that enterprises kind of took for granted down to small business owners and making them approachable and affordable for small businesses, along with providing a level of support that is more in line with what enterprises are used to than what folks may expect in a small business kind of thing. So that means 24/7 US-based phone support, making sure that you can talk to a person. We realize that website security isn't something that most business owners want to think about at all or spend a lot of time thinking about. And so we want them to have access to experts in the field whenever they need them. And be able to talk to a person, because it's an intimidating topic to go kind of read about on your own. So, that was kind of the idea of forming SiteLock. Fast forward, I guess, 8 years, and we've been, growing the business since then, and now we're working with around 8 million websites that we are scanning and helping to keep safe every day. And so, we've had a good kind of success in starting to work with a lot of small businesses and a lot of small business owners. And for us, we've recently, probably in the last year or so, started to really get a little bit more involved directly in the WordPress community, wanting to make more of a contact with that community. And we've done a lot of things in that space, and happy to talk about that as well. But that's a little bit about who we are.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love to talk about you guys sort of entering the WordPress community. It's even though it powers over a quarter of the web. The community itself is a relatively small group, and it's, we hear the same names, we encounter the same companies, and providing whatever their various services are, and SiteLock was like, you guys weren't on my radar actually until I met Logan Kipp at Pressnomics earlier this year, and he's a great ambassador, by the way. But yeah, started learning about what you guys do and how massive you guys are. I mean, you've got a ton of reach, and it's not just kind of in this WordPress space. But if you could touch a little bit on like what was the driver behind identifying that you wanted to be more involved in the community, or what was kind of the thought process behind that?
Yeah, sure. Happy to talk about it. So, we, toward the end of last year, we looked at it and we said, hey, we have a little over 1 million WordPress sites that we're helping to protect. But with that, we did some kind of initial reach outs and some attendance at events and things. We said, no one in this community knows who we are. And that's a shame, right? We want to get more connected in there. We protect a lot of WordPress sites. We do a lot of work with WordPress site owners. And so, it was the kind of thing where we said, look, a couple of things. One, it's a big and very kind of vibrant community, and we should be part of it, and want to give something back to it as well. And so we reach a lot of our customers through partnerships, and we partner with, large service providers, telcos, website hosters, things like that. And so, in some sense, we're a little bit behind the scenes. And so people don't necessarily always know our brand or know who we are. But recently, we've come a little bit more kind of directly with customers, and particularly in the WordPress community, we were hearing a lot exactly what you said. Like, I don't know who you guys are. I've never heard of SiteLock. And so we thought that was just really a miss on our part that we needed to correct, and really start to be much more engaged and part of the community. And so last year, we started to really be more diligent in attending WordPress events, WordCamps, the WooConf, things like that. And as you mentioned, Logan and another one of our WordPress evangelists is Adam Warner. And so we have a couple of folks now who are attending almost every WordCamp and kind of getting not only our voice into that community and starting to make connections on behalf of our company, but also getting, more importantly for us, feedback from the community about how we can, make changes to our products and services and improve, our messaging and product features and functionality for that WordPress community that we see as a really important part of our business. Like I said, we have a lot of WordPress sites, and as you pointed out, it powers, a quarter of the web. So we need to be there.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool because you're not like some Johnny come lately just popping up on the WordPress scene and, okay, we're going to work this. It's, oh my gosh, you have a lot of history and experience and success already behind you. And so now you're making connections in that space. And I'm glad you are, because here you are. Here I am.
Yeah, us too. We've learned so much. And, I think for us, it's been great. It was really a miss on our side from a kind of a marketing perspective, from a product and technology and kind of background standpoint. We had always been working with WordPress and securing WordPress sites and helping WordPress site owners, but we never really had the reach into the community to get that feedback and really put our name out there. So we're excited to be part of it, and have been kind of touring the globe looking for going to these WordPress events, and it's been cool to get the feedback and interact with the community.
Awesome. Well, I actually referred one of my clients to you after she had some security boogers on her on a couple of her sites, and she had nothing to sing but your praises. So thanks for making me look good by delivering your services exceptionally well.
That's awesome. I'm glad we could help, and obviously thanks.
You betcha. I've got a question from the vendor here. He asked, based on your experience working with WordPress sites, what are some of the major security goof ups that are done by site owners? Like maybe the easily preventable things.
Yeah, I think like one of the most easily preventable things is one of the great things about WordPress is that it has this great library of plugins and themes and functionality that you can take advantage of. And when people start working on their WordPress or their website, they're very excited to do everything, right? And so they may go out and install, a theme and 20 plugins because they think they want to do all this stuff, and they're just kind of got that initial kind of vigor about going out there, and what people a lot of times don't do is go back 6 months later, or every so often, and look at what am I actually using on my site, right? And if I'm not using those things, let's get rid of them, because anything that you have out there that you're not using and not updating and not keeping track of just kind of expands the attack surface for someone to do something malicious to your site. So if you're not using it, get rid of it. And I think a lot of people go out there and it's so easy to install a bunch of stuff, and it sounds all exciting, but the reality is how much bandwidth do you have to really do all of that stuff and manage it and maintain it. So a lot of site owners end up having a ton of potential functionality that they aren't using yet. And so it's one of those things where we would say go back and trim out the stuff that you don't need and you're not using. It's probably the easiest thing that happens, because people forget that they've installed these things, and then, as vulnerabilities come up over time, and if you're not diligent about.
Are you still there? Neill, I'm not sure if I lost you or if you lost me. And I hope that I'm not talking over you. Maybe somebody can shoot me a little tweet and say what you're seeing out on your end. Let's see here. Did you? Sorry, it's hard to live tweet and talk at the same time. Okay, send out a little tweet. We'll see if we're missing. In the meantime, let's see. Apparently, I'm still on the air. Neill, we're gonna hope that you come back soon. So, sorry guys for technical difficulties. For once, it's not me bringing the technical difficulty to the table, and that in and of itself is a mild miracle. I'm actually hardwired into my router today so as to not lose any connectivity. Neill, you back with me? Nope. Oh, and his face even dropped off. That's how bad it got. Well, they have great security, but apparently their Wi-Fi sucks at its SiteLock. Just kidding. If you guys we'll just sideway or go on a sec here while we're waiting for Neill to come back. But I did not have a live broadcast last week, but I did have an interview I published with Chris Ducker from chrisducker.com. He's big into masterminds and helping people with their personal brands. And it was an excellent interview, if I do say so myself. So I'd encourage you to head back over to officehours.fm and catch that. It was episode number 110. And yeah, so it looked like Neill popped back on and now he popped back off. And, let's just take a moment to be grateful that I have guests on the show that I can interview each week. Otherwise, you could just sit here and listen to me opine for an hour. And how terrible would that be? It could be terrible. No, Tara, we are not going to talk about politics now. Shoot me if Office Hours FM ever goes down that particular route. No, we will leave that to the pundits and to all of Twitter and Facebook. I'm sure everyone is muting liberally these days, people on the web that you don't want to hear their opinions. All right, what else have we got on the dockets? Let me tell you a little bit more about the WordPress, the officehours.fm community. And yes, I am totally pimping it right now. But if you're curious about it, come on over, check it out, my.officehours.fm. We've got a book club going on over there. We've got a daily or a Monday through Friday coffee chat, so we can just get together and just kind of catch up with each other, meet and greet, and just forum where we can in a Slack channel where we can make good connections and encourage each other. So check that out. And it looks like Neill, you're back with us.
Yeah, sorry about that. My computer just decided to restart itself, which was awesome.
Sweet. Well, you know, it always happens at convenient times, I found.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, unless you remember where we are, we're just going to keep on rolling.
That sounds good.
Okay, because I have a short-term memory problem, and yeah, I don't know what where exactly what we were talking on.
Yeah,
But
I don't know exactly where we got cut off. I was kind of just talking through the importance of, you know, taking an inventory of the things that you're using on your site and removing the things that you're not. But I don't know how far into that I got, but that's an important tip, I think, is, you know, just making sure that you are aware of what you're using and what's available out there on your site.
that's a good tip, even for seasoned site owners. I know I tend to let things let things go or forget to go back and kind of cull the herd every once in a while.
Yeah, it's good to do a little spring cleaning, right? Even whether it's your website or you know, anything, any IT asset.
Yes, absolutely. A technical question here from Patty. She said, "How do you know about the latest security vulnerabilities? Do you follow U.S. CERT, etc.?" I have no idea what that means. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, we do follow a number of different sources. That's certainly one of them. We also conduct our own research into, you know, vulnerabilities that are out there, and, you know, we have a team of security researchers who are looking for those on an ongoing basis. And so you know, we use all those, of course, commercially available sources and government sources like CERT, but we also do a bit of our own kind of digging to look for those things. And one of the ways that we are able to kind of do that is, you know, we have access to a lot of website data based on the number of sites we're scanning. And so we're able to identify kind of trends and common issues that people are having that give us visibility into, you know, where some of the latest vulnerabilities may be, or where the latest malware is taking shape, so that we can help our customers either react to those things or clean up after you know, malware or security issues occur.
Uh, you mentioned data, and this is something we don't have to get into it right now, but I do want to talk about data, taking all of the
Okay.
data and what you can do with data. But I've got a couple
Well,
more
you're
questions
talking to
here.
a guy who majored in statistics, so anything you want to talk about data-wise, I'm right with you.
I know. I was reading your bio, and I was like, oh man, we can let's talk some spreadsheets.
Yeah,
Um,
for
the
sure. It's a big part of our business, you know, and one of the reasons that, you know, we think it's so important to kind of work with the number of websites we have and build at scale is because it gives us that ability to, you know, aggregate large amounts of data and identify anomalies and, you know, identify kind of trends across the internet, just given the amount of data and website information that we're exposed to. And we download, you know, 10 or so terabytes of website source code every month from customers' websites, and we're using all of that to continue to kind of push that flywheel of you know, the more data we have, the better the products get, and the more folks that we can help out.
When you guys started, did you have the systems in place, like something scalable already to be able to handle and analyze that data, or has that been something you've had to grow into?
So when we built the company, you know, we started like everybody from zero customers, right? But you know, we quickly kind of scaled that out. And one of the things that we did when we built the business was we built the product to be able to scale and to, maybe more importantly, work with, as I mentioned in the beginning, the smaller businesses, because, you know, there's just, by nature of it, more small companies than there are large companies. And one of the things about the small businesses is that they tend to be in kind of multi-tenant hosted environments. And so we knew that our scanning and our technology needed to be very lightweight in order to be able to scan that kind of, you know, the mass market type websites. And so, you know, in order to build that scale, we needed to have a product that worked in those environments. And so that's something that we built into the product and the technology from the beginning, and have, you know, a good bit of IP and you know, patented IP kind of tied around the concept of being able to scan any website in any environment, and do so in a way that doesn't disrupt the site or disrupt the environment. And that has been one of the things that's helped us kind of gain scale and gain traction to kind of, you know, get to reach that large scale mass market.
That just sounds overwhelming.
Yeah, I know that was pretty nerdy, but the
no,
idea
not
is that
overwhelming from a nerdy perspective. Overwhelming from that's just like culling through that much information and being able to extract the truly meaningful parts, and then translate that into, you know, some sort of a product enhancement or
yeah.
you know, whatever it is. That it sounds like an art form, really.
And the way we've done it has really evolved as the company's grown and changed. So, you know, in the beginning, we were kind of more looking for the, you know, we had a certain way we would look for security issues based on, you know, sources that we saw and customer data and things like that. And as we evolved, we found that we needed to rely much more on our own research efforts. And, you know, because to the question, we used, you know, external things and that for a while. But as the company grew relatively quickly, we realized that we needed to rely on our own research because we were seeing things much quicker than external, you know, influences were. And so, you know, we evolved in that way, and, you know, now are to the point where, you know, we're really kind of very focused on that, like, last 1%, what looks different from the day before, kind of concept. And so, you know, we're constantly trying to stay ahead of that. And to your point, like, blending the art and science of, you know, where do we find the latest information, the latest kind of threats and the latest hacks and the latest vulnerabilities, you know, from that kind of mass data set that we're accumulating. But the good thing about it is we have the data. Without that, we'd never see it. So that's one of the things that, you know, really drives the product improvement.
Yeah. Well, out of curiosity, or do you know kind of like a rough percentage of customers that use SiteLock for preventative purposes versus ones that had trouble and then came crying for help?
So, you know, it depends on how they are introduced to our products in some cases, because a lot of folks get SiteLock when they buy their website. So they're, you know, by definition, kind of getting it from the get-go. And then, you know, we have also customers who come to us, you know, in various different stages. And, you know, I think one of the things that has continued to be true and, you know, has kind of, though it has kind of gotten a little bit better over time, is that folks tend to think that they don't need to worry about security. For various reasons. You know, I'm too small, nobody cares about me, nobody's going to bother me. You know, I don't make controversial statements, so no one's going to try to attack me, you know. And logically and common sense wise, that makes a ton of sense. But the reality is that none of that stuff matters. And, you know, any kind of IT asset that's out there, including a website, even a very small one, provides value to cyber criminals, whether that be data or resources or whatever. And so we do still have a lot of people who come to us kind of after the fact, completely unaware, unfortunately, that this was something that they even needed to think about in the first place.
Kind of like insurance. Like you might not know you need it until after you need it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And, you know, I think that there's a lot of kind of, it's hard to kind of unpack for, you know, small business owners. They want to do what they're passionate about, which is, you know, if they're running a bakery or a t-shirt shop or whatever, that's what they want to do. They don't want to think about security and all those things. And so they get a lot of messages about security, right? Their desktop antivirus, their SSL provider maybe, and all these different kinds of you know, noise out there in the market. And so, you know, they may think they're doing a lot of things to secure themselves. And, you know, I think in some sense, you know, it's important for us in the security community to be as diligent as we can in educating people, you know, where our products start and stop, and, you know, what other options are out there and what other things are out there that people need to be thinking about, because, you know, it's important to have the right tool for the right job. And for a website, there's various tools that, you know, that you need.
So there's a lot of folks that listen to this show that provide client services around web development or some sort of software development for WordPress. Any recommendations for how, as vendors, that we can help educate our clients on the needs for web security?
Yeah, I mean, depending how kind of full service you take that approach, one thing that some of the kind of design agencies and things that we work with have started to do is just include security as part of the product. Because a lot of customers will kind of assume that you're doing that, right? They assume that you're delivering them a secure web, not just a website, but a website that's, secure and not going to get hacked and all of those kinds of things. So some folks have been a little more proactive in saying, look, when I provide this site, it's also going to come with these security features, and they just kind of bundle that into the initial cost of doing the websites that they're working on. It depends if you're more kind of lower in the stack and you're providing hosting or something of that fashion. One of the things we think is important is to make clear to everyone what their responsibility is for securing the site. So if you're kind of taking the site and handing it off to someone and saying, okay, it's yours, just kind of giving them that checklist of here's the things that you need to think about when you're thinking about securing the site. And if you're just kind of providing, kind of storage and compute, then you need to kind of have a bigger checklist. If you're giving them the whole website fully baked, then the checklist is smaller, but equally important that they understand what they need to do. And so there's kind of two approaches to it. One is that kind of full service where you would include that as part of your maybe ongoing maintenance of the site. If you're in that full service mode. The other is to say, hey, I'm turning this over. These are some things I recommend that you do as, now you're taking responsibility for this project that I've worked on for you.
There was a fantastic article published this week by a fellow named Andre, and I won't embarrass myself by trying to pronounce his last name, but on Twitter, his handle is RARST, Rarst. And it was about responsibility in WordPress, and sort of it plays into exactly what you're talking about with when we hand over these completed projects to the owner, to our clients, or whatever. Are we educating them and telling them, helping them know that security is important? Keeping your servers updated and being on a current version of PHP, and going the checklist
Right.
that you mentioned, and how and I've done this myself. You hand off sites and you don't cover those essentials. Basically, I'll say so. It's like, hey, just make sure you keep your plugins updated or whatnot,
Right.
but never really fully covering. Doing that client education piece about why it is so important. Anyways, I'm kind of on a tangent there, but great article. I'll make sure to get that in the show notes for those of you guys who are tuning in. So Tara has a question. She said some hosts block infected sites, and they also offer or sell site lock. And she said she's had clients suspect intentional hacks for upselling. What would you say to a client that's like, they did it on purpose just to sell me something else?
Yeah, I mean, so it's true that hosts do suspend sites from time to time. One of the things that they need to be worried about is the potential that upstream providers would view the fact that they're hosting infected or malicious sites as negative to their IP and kind of cut them off from the rest of the internet based on one site on their network. So what they do is when they're alerted to the fact that a site is either compromised or malicious, they'll take that site offline. And then for legitimate site owners who have been compromised, a lot of times they'll give them instructions on how to remove the malware, or they'll say you can also work with a provider like SiteLock. And from our perspective, if people are equipped and skilled and can clean their sites up themselves, then I think by all means, right? I think a lot of site owners can't or are not interested in kind of learning how to do that and keeping that maintained. And that's where our service kind of comes into play. As far as, intentionally doing that, I don't think, there's neither our partners nor us would have much of a business if we were kind of doing that'd be a criminal activity, right? So we certainly don't do that, though. I can kind of see how looking at it from a little bit different lens, maybe a more cynical lens, I could see that, but certainly not what's happening. That said, it is a real problem that hosts have to deal with is how do they manage the reputation of their network and the reputation of their servers, and kind of balance that against the need to keep the websites that they serve up and secure and all of that. And so that's one of the reasons that we do work with a lot of hosting providers kind of hand in glove, is to help them, you know, help their clients really recover from attacks whenever these types of things happen. So that's kind of our role in that ecosystem.
All right. So Tara, tell your clients it is illegal and they're not doing criminal activity just to get more business. No, that makes
yeah, that would be
sense.
a tough way to position it. And, you know, I don't think that anyone, us, the host, the end customer, would be well served by an enterprise such as that.
It would be like if the tire store threw a bunch of nails out on the street, like a mile out.
Exactly.
So when it comes to these hosting relationships, and not to throw anyone under the bus at all, it's just a question of curiosity. But a lot of, or pretty much every managed WordPress host say that as part of, you know, that the higher fees, as opposed to what you would pay on a multi-tenant host, includes some level of site security. So their servers are more locked down, or, you know, I don't know what all the specifics of that are. In your opinion, is that is that the way that you are partnering with host, or is that something different? And if it's something different, do you deem their server security adequate for protecting your site? Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. And you know, the way I would say is, we do work with a number of hosting providers to help add security into managed WordPress offerings. You know, that said, I think that the hosting community in general does a really good job around server security. And they you know, have a very good kind of you know, approach to that, and it's very solid. You know, the kind of flip side of waiting to look at that is to say, if they didn't, what would happen, right? And if they didn't, you'd be reading about really large scale hacks a lot more often. You know, you'd be seeing hundreds of thousands of sites being compromised at a time because of, if a multi-tenant kind of host got compromised at the network or server level, right? I think the thing that kind of distinguishes it when you start talking about application layer, or, you know, and websites, you know, those folks want to give their clients the flexibility to do what they want with their web applications, right? Whether they write their own code, or they're using WordPress, or they're using another CMS, or whatever they decide they want to do. And so with that, you know, they're taking responsibility for the server and network kind of level security. And they're saying, hey, you know, you're going to do what you want in this real estate that we've given you. So, you know, you're going to be responsible for the security of your website and your web application. That's going to be on you know, the person who owns that website. And so that part of the equation is where our role is, to help website owners protect their website and their web applications that they use in that folder. If you think about it, it's almost like we use this analogy a lot to help people understand is, you know, it's almost like you're renting an apartment, right? And so your hosting company would be your landlord, right? And so if the lobby gets broken into and someone vandalizes the lobby, then they're going to take care of that, right? That's more like your server kind of level. If you leave the door to your apartment open and someone steals your TV, that's your fault, right? And so you're responsible for making sure that your windows and doors are locked and all of that kind of thing, right? And so you know, that's kind of the analogy that we use, and we're there to help website owners kind of secure their apartment, right? Their piece of real estate, whether that be through working with hosts in a managed kind of environment where we're providing an additional layer of security, or whether that be through working directly with website owners who happen to be in a, you know, more open kind of multi-tenant environment.
That's actually an excellent analogy. Well done. Let's see. Devender has a question here on e-commerce. He says, when you're using e-commerce and WordPress, the security requirements go up a few notches. Are there any specific things you do to make a site a little bit more watertight when you've got e-commerce involved?
Well, I mean, you know, I think when you have e-commerce involved, for sure, you know, encryption goes from being an option to a necessity. Right, so you're going to want to use SSL on that. You know, if you're doing e-com, you know, you really want to, you got to start thinking about things like PCI compliance as well. So they're going to want to know, what's going on with your network, what types of policies you have in place to manage credit card data and things of that nature, right? So you got to kind of, I think beyond just your website, it becomes a kind of company policy question of, how are you managing users and passwords and things like that are in the kind of credit card environment. And then I think the other piece is, you really, when you're doing e-commerce, it's not just a brochure that's out there that people can kind of become educated about your business, but it's actually your business online. So, we always recommend that people take measures to avoid downtime. And how does downtime occur, right? It can occur because, you get suspended by a search engine, or you get suspended by a service provider. It can occur because someone attacks your site and shuts it down with traffic, like a denial of service type of attack. And so we recommend different types of products for people who are using e-commerce to make sure that they're preventing any kind of, unnecessary security incident, because for them, like, downtime is money, right? So it's a little bit different from, just being found online, because, you may have other means of that, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. But if you're selling e-com, like, you really need that site to be up too. So I think that's one of the things that people want to think about, beyond the obvious things like, SSL and you got to start thinking about PCI compliance. Our other piece of advice for e-commerce customers is that you do not want to be the one responsible for storing credit card information. Let your merchant provider do that. They're well set up to manage that, and it brings such a large responsibility of what you need to do to protect that data, that we recommend that unless you're a really big business or you're really kind of security savvy, you want to let that off to someone whose business it is to manage credit card data.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I don't ever want to touch credit card data with a 10-foot pole. Any thoughts on OpenSSL?
Are you talking about some of like the free initiatives, like around Let's Encrypt and that sort of thing?
Let's Encrypt, yes.
Yeah. So Let's Encrypt, I mean, and others now are offering, Symantec recently came out with like a kind of free-ish version of their products, and there's others, Komodo, others as well. But, and I think if you feel like, you're, you're interested in that sort of thing, I think those are great initiatives, and, they're really good for kind of helping site owners, verify the authenticity of their site. And, I think if their users are concerned about privacy, that's something that can be really helpful in doing that. From a security perspective, it will encrypt the data that's in transit back and forth. And, for many sites that can be important, for especially like we talked about e-commerce. So I think it's a good thing for site owners who are interested in, they, could definitely avail themselves of it. One of the things I think we need to be careful about that we mentioned earlier is kind of the notion that, SSL is all you need to be secure. It does kind of protect the encryption and some of the authenticity pieces that I mentioned, but, there are a lot of pieces to that security puzzle. And just like you wouldn't want to, rely solely on like a desktop antivirus, relying solely on SSL is equally kind of, a potential issue. So, while I think it's definitely an important part of the security puzzle, I think there are a lot of pieces to consider. And I think that's one of the things that I think the SSL group does a great job of getting that message out there that's important, and it absolutely is. I think, sometimes what we need to make sure of is that folks know that there is, additional kind of parts that are important as well.
Good info. If you have tuned in midway, I'm chatting with Neill Feather, the president over at SiteLock, Site Security. And you can ask questions over on Twitter using the hashtag OfficeFM, or if you're watching on Google, use the Q&A app. Or if you're listening to this after the fact, I'm just sorry that you don't get to get in your questions. But we'll try to guess whatever your questions may be and ask them here. So let's shift a little bit away from security specifically and get more into your background as a statistician and great lover of data. I'm a small business owner. A lot of folks that listen to the show are, and, there's always a million things on the plate. And, how do you determine what's important, what's going to be the most impactful, where do I need to put my attention? And I suspect that data hold some answers there in terms of, you know, kind of looking at the numbers and gleaning those insights and then taking action on them. As a business owner, what sort of numbers or data is maybe the most important to you in helping make business decisions? Not necessarily the data that you're getting, you know, from your sites and your the sites that you're looking at, but just from a business standpoint.
Yeah, great question. I think, you know, the obvious things are, you know, things like, you know, revenue and profit margins and things like that, but that's, you know, mostly like financial. And I think what ends up being, you know, really important to us, we do quite a bit of surveying of customers for, you know, not only things like satisfaction. We use like Net Promoter Score to kind of give us an idea of, you know, areas that we have for improvement from a customer service standpoint. But we also look at, you know, service level agreement. How fast are we able to respond to tickets? How quickly are we able to get back to people? How many times are we making people call us back? You know, that first call resolution, things like that. So from a customer service perspective, we have a lot of data like that we're really keenly interested in. And then the other side of it is, you know, we also want to make sure that we're pretty well in touch with the needs and kind of goals of our employees. So we do, you know, employee surveys, you know, fairly frequently to make sure that we're, you know, providing the things that people want, whether that be in terms of benefits, you know, healthcare, things like that, you know, or even, you know, things like, you know, free lunches and free breakfasts and snacks and those other kind of little niceties that we do. You know, I think career development is a big one that we focus on with our folks, and how many promotions and how many, you know, how much of that are we able to do internally versus sourcing externally. And we really think that's important because, you know, honestly, like your employees are your company and they are your business. So if they're not feeling challenged and feeling like they're growing, you know, it's going to be difficult to continue to be successful as a company. So those are the things that we focus on from kind of running the business is, you know, how do we improve from a customer perspective in terms of, you know, being faster, being better, and then also from an employee perspective, making sure that those folks are, you know, well taken care of and feel like they're getting value out of their time here.
For the customer surveys and feedback, do you offer any sort of incentive for them to fill that out, or is it like a I guess, well, here, let me frame the question with some of my own experience. So, for instance, I get off a support chat and immediately I'm asked, hey, was it, you know, thumbs up, thumbs down? What did you like? What did you hate? And I mean, it's real quick. It's in the moment. It's fresh in your mind, but no problem. Then, like, I'll go visit a doctor, and a week later, I get an email that's got like this 10-page survey that they want me to fill out, and the questions are inane, and like there's zero reason why I would want to take the time to fill out that survey, unless I was just so pissed off. I just really wanted my voice to be heard. But when it comes to like, how are you getting that customer feedback, and are you incentivizing them to do that, or is it more just sort of in the moment, on the fly kind of stuff, or what's been successful?
We don't provide incentives at present, but you know, one of the things that we think is you know, important and helps kind of get feedback, even though we're not kind of, you know, providing any kind of incentive for it, is it's one question, right? And so that's one of the reasons that we like the NPS, Net Promoter Score methodology, which is, you know, and one question is, how likely are you to a colleague? How happy that, and what, you know, what they would, how they view our service, really.
Yeah, I guess you can get a whole lot of information in that one question, or at least some binary information.
And data person, you know, you probably like it, but there's been a ton of research done about what that answer to that question means.
So what does it mean if it's like an 8?
So the way they do it is 9 and 10 are people who would promote you to a friend. 8 and 7 they call passive, which means like they would neither promote or not promote, like say no, right, if someone asked them. And then 6 and lower is they call detractors. So the way that you calculate it is you take the percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors, and that's how you get your score. And they've done a lot of research to say, like, if you say 7, if someone asks you, would you recommend this product or service, they'll say, well, yeah, it's okay. So you really want those people who are promoters in that 10 and 9, kind of where you're really exceeding expectations and delighting your customers, and that's what we want to be doing.
I feel you. Okay. So yes, I am so excited about this. I am actually probably going to tell someone later today. Or, I didn't hate it, but I liked it. Makes sense. Okay, so we've got in terms of metrics for that are important to your business. You're talking about customer satisfaction, customer feedback, and then also employee satisfaction and feedback. Any other numbers in particular or data that's helpful in sort of driving your direction?
I mean, for us, like, it's very specific to us, but we look at, what percentage of websites are we able to clean, in the first hour, in the first 4 hours, in the first, 8 hours. So, we're looking at things like that. How many do we find that are, infected before anyone else knows about it, that kind of stuff. So those are kind of very unique to our business. And every business has something like that, right? That kind of gives them an idea of how effective their product or service is relative to, the rest of the world or in serving their customers. And so we look at a lot of data, and there's, we have a sheet of, hundreds of those kinds of stats that we're looking at, red, yellow, green kind of thing, that we're looking at. But, from a kind of translatable side, I mean, some of those metrics, around, customer satisfaction, and then we look at more like leading indicators of that. Like, we know that the faster we turn around, websites and tickets and customer questions and things like that, the higher our satisfaction is going to be. So we track every day, are we in the acceptable range, or, did we fall out of it for certain customers? And we look at, how fast do we get to, different percentages, 90%, 80%, things like that. So we look at a lot of those kind of leading metrics to try to give us an indication of where we need to course correct before we find out in a more kind of backwards looking metric, like, revenue or cancellations or something like that.
Yeah, by then it's too late.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm actually reading a book right now. It's called The 12-Week Year, but it talks about sort of, having those, the metrics that you look at, your leaders and your detractors, and measuring progress in much smaller chunks. So it's kind of, I mean, it's great, sure, to look at your last year's revenue or whatever those sort of big numbers are. But at that point, it's in 1 year chunks, it's entirely too massive. You're just getting feedback. You're just getting information. You're not actually getting any actionable feedback at that point because too much time has passed.
Yeah, exactly. I used to have a boss who described that as driving by looking in the rearview mirror.
Another good
analogy. That was a colorful analogy.
Oh, let's see. Devinder must have been overlooking at your website. He says that there are no prices for various plans. Is there any specific reasons for not showing those and making the request, making the customer request the quote?
Yeah, we feel like it's important to that we have the right solution in place for our customers. So we want to have a conversation with a customer about what they need, what their website's about. We find that a lot of our customers don't necessarily have a lot of depth of, security focus. It's just not something that they're that focused on. So the last thing we want is for someone to buy something and be disappointed with what they got. So we want to make sure that they're getting all the right features and not either over, complicating it, nor kind of under protecting their site. So we think that it's important to have a conversation with customers, and that's one of the reasons that we don't kind of drive that quick online conversion, and we want to have a conversation with a customer.
I like that. So you're kind of getting out of the price shopping game by not displaying that information and giving you guys the opportunity to walk through and educate a potential customer before they become a customer. I like that approach. Thanks
yeah, exactly. We want them to feel like they've got a partner, not that they're just buying a product from a company. So that's one of the reasons that we want to talk to folks. We want to give them, and that's one of the reasons that we think it's important that we offer, 24/7 phone support and that sort of thing. So, we have that relationship with the customer rather than, more of a kind of online quick conversion mass market kind of thing. We want to treat every customer, like they're an enterprise, like they're Bank of America, and so that's why we think that it's important to have that conversation rather than just have people click a buy button and then kind of off they go. And including things like, if you want, we'll set up your service for you and we'll do stuff like that, at no extra charge. So that's something that, because a lot of our customers just aren't that technical. They're not interested in being technical. They just want a service that works and they can kind of, sleep well at night knowing that their site's secure. And so we want to have that conversation and make sure that they're comfortable with it.
So with that, do you still sort of internally have a silver, gold, platinum plan plus some a la carte things, or is every single transaction a uniquely kind of a unique selection of offerings per client?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have like package solutions. It's just a matter of getting folks into that right package. And then if they need a custom solution, then for sure we'll customize it as well. Most folks are able to fit into a bucket. It's just kind of making sure that, we get them in the right plan and the right package. And then, like you say, there are a lot of like a la carte kind of options or, things that we can either add in or take out based on customer need.
Good deal. We've got a few minutes left here together, so I'm just going to ask you some hypotheticals. But where do you see, just as the landscape of the technology landscape changes and how we're accessing data and working with data and in terms of our the internet, what role do you see security playing? I mean, I'm sure it continues to play an increasing role, but what are the challenges, or what do you see that's going to be different in maybe 5 years? A concern that maybe is not presently a concern?
Well, I think, the amount of interaction that people have with technology now is reaching such a point through, internet connected devices and home connected homes and things like that, that the amount of data and personal information about you that's going to be out there and need to be secured is just going to, multiply many, many times over. In 5 years, I can't really even imagine how much of that information is going to be out there, right? I had an opportunity to kind of tour a connected home display at the Target store in San Francisco. And some of the devices that are being connected to the internet are kind of like amazing that they're doing this, right? And just the amount of data that's going to mean that is out there in the internet and in the ether is, kind of it's awesome and a little bit scary about how much information about you is going to be available. Things that you never thought would be connected to the internet, refrigerators, basketballs, crock pots, like crazy stuff is all going to be out there and, with varying security needs. And I think that's a big thing that people are going to see over the next few years. And I think the other change is going to be, or the interesting thing to see is going to be how consumers react to that. And are people kind of so freaked out about it that they don't use these products, or do they get to a saturation point where, I just don't care anymore kind of thing? Or, are they really going to get educated about the security of their data and their personal information? And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to observe.
Yeah. So forgive me for bringing up Pokemon Go, but it's social login. So there's no account creation. You sign in via your Google account. And I was like, well, great. Now, as if Google didn't already know everything, now they know exactly I'm GPS connected at all moments via my Google account to Pokemon Go. But yeah, there is kind of that point where you're like, oh, well, crap, they know it all anyways. Just going to let her rip. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how tech unfolds.
I found it interesting to just see the various kind of applications that people have made, using that kind of connected technology in the Internet of Things. Some really cool stuff out there, and some kind of things that I was just thinking would never have to be connected, like a basketball. But there you have it.
I'm guessing that's for training purposes. Like you can get some stats on your dribbling and.
Yeah, like I really like basketball, so it's actually awesome. Like, but it's something that I never would have thought of. But it tells you, yeah, like the rotation on your jump shot, and how often you're practicing and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so this is totally off topic, but is the basketball, does the weight and balance of it feel exactly the same, or can you tell?
Yeah, you can't tell. I mean, the sensors so small, but you can't tell that it's different from a normal ball.
Huh. Well, there you have it. Smart basketballs.
Exactly.
It's quite possible that I'm going to meet a basketball one of these days that's smarter than I am, and then I'll just have to retire. Oh, well, we'll wrap it up here, Neill, because I know you need to get on with your day, and the folks who are tuning in need to get back to their stuff too. But before we go, any other? This is the interview question everybody hates, but is there anything we didn't touch on that you think would be important to know in terms of security or just anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for security for kind of everyday website owners is just take an interest in it, and take a few minutes and kind of get up to speed on what's out there and what you need to be thinking about, and realize that it's something that all websites need to be thinking about. I think that's one of the biggest things that we try to impress upon people is even if you just need a little bit of security, you want to have something to know what's going on. And I think that as a business owner, that's an important thing, and you wouldn't leave your store unlocked. Make sure that you're protecting your online assets as well, and I think that's something that we try to impress upon people.
Awesome. Well, Neill, where can people find you or follow up with you online to learn more or say hello?
Yeah, so we're SiteLock on Twitter and Facebook. You can always reach us at our website on www.sitelock.com.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time and your sharing your knowledge, and man, hopefully I'll see you at a WordCamp or other WordPress event one of these days.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to it.
Cool. Take care.
All right. Thanks again, Carrie. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.